Thank you for asking my thoughts regarding the derailment at Watson siding. As your management consultant, I've prepared a few slides for us to go through to support my recommendation. So let's get started. A few things I will cover in this meeting. A brief address of the immediate action you took upon first receiving an emergency call from Baxter. I will then break down my sorter analysis, provide a summary, and finally open the floor for any questions or concerns you may have. I will not spend too much time on what has already been done, but I just wanted to highlight the importance of acting immediately to remedy the situation and allow us to dive further. Now that you've contacted the emergency services, as well as the emergency hotline of TRC, we can now conduct a deeper analysis to solve the issue further. The first step in my analysis was to consider the money. Having known you for quite some time now, Mr. Jackson, I know that we are both worried about how much money could be lost because of this derailment. The point I want to get across is that we are looking at a potential decline in revenue, not only with the physical damage costs, but also with the halt in transport of goods and potentially a dip in stock and reputation. To me, revenue is a primary concern, and I ask that you keep this in mind throughout the duration of this presentation. I've conducted a SWOT analysis, which I'd be happy to discuss if you so choose after my presentation. But for now, for the purpose of time, I will just highlight that my key point is to prioritize the limitation of financial declines while handling this problem. Now, I've provided a few choices that you could consider for your decision. They were derived under the MECE method, which starts with doing nothing. The reality is, Mr. Jackson, this is not your problem, and any further contribution that you have is not a requirement of your position. Next, you have the option of rerouting the operating trains so that no more further deliveries are missed, preventing consumer frustration and softening revenue loss. You could also comply with Baxter, that is to send a wrecking crane to clear the path just as he's asking. Or you could let the immediate action be handled by other team members, which would allow you to focus more on changing an existing company culture. Which, to be frank with you, Mr. Jackson, as we were learning from this case, it does include improving emergency protocols. Before I unpack these possibilities, I want to just quickly cover the criteria that I'm going to use to grade each option. I've considered the safety of each alternative, its effectiveness in restoring the movement of goods, the speed at which it can do that, and finally, the cost of each option, which I know we are both thinking of. So along the top of this table are the criteria that I mentioned, where a green check mark indicates a positive rating for a certain option. A red X, on the other hand, indicates a con of a certain option. The goal in doing the option analysis is to eliminate possibilities and choose a solution that best coincides with the criteria that is most important to us. According to this options analysis, it is evident that rerouting the trains is the best possible alternative. Not only is it a safe and speedy fix, but it also guarantees that goods will reach places that they need to reach, avoiding another possible dip in revenue. Not to mention, this alternative also keeps the cost of resolution low and also shows your consumers your commitment to providing their goods promptly. While my recommendation should be put in place as soon as possible, I also want you to consider some other solutions in the short term and long term. Mr. Jackson, you of all people know the feeling of being punished for acting in times of emergency, of course, with the experience you had years ago, but as I'm sure you realized, this type of culture creates a fragile work environment, and it's not healthy to work like that. Additionally, I also suggest that you improve the company's emergency protocol. Again, if this is something you would like more advice on, that is totally something we can discuss in the future. But just as an example, owning more wrecking cranes might help avoid shortages during times of maintenance. Now, I understand that my recommendation might not be to your liking. In the case that you decide that you would rather take another route than the one I've provided, I must convey a series of risks that you're taking by doing so. I will not break down each one, but I do want to address the risk of goods becoming unsellable and ruining a potential stream of revenue. This would lead to a decrease in income, which is the opposite of what you need in an already very expensive situation. So ideally, we want to avoid this at all costs. Now, as you'll see in the chart, this actually is a very impactful and quite likely situation. So again, when developing our solution, we have to avoid this. I know I have unpacked quite a bit of information, so I'll quickly summarize the important points. My concern is the loss of revenue, and my analysis works to limit that loss in any way possible. Because of this, I recommend that you reroute the operating trains so that they can still deliver goods and generate incomes during this difficult time. To support this resolution, I provided a very brief timeline to implement this change and other future changes that could be made to turn this situation as positive as you can. And finally, I addressed the risks associated with straying from my suggestion that I have provided. Thank you for your time, Mr. Jackson. And if you have any questions, you know you are always welcome to contact me directly.